You treat her well. You work hard. You provide. You think that's enough. But comfort is not connection. And a woman doesn't cheat because she's unhappy. She cheats because she's unfulfilled. That's the part most men never see until it's over. They think loyalty is guaranteed by effort. But effort without emotional depth is just routine dressed as love. There are 6 emotional voids that quietly kill her desire, one by one, until all that's left is distance disguised as peace. You can keep believing you're safe, or you can finally learn what every man should have been taught long ago. This isn't about control. It's about awareness. And awareness, that's what separates the man she leaves from the man she could never walk away from. Before we go further, stop and ask yourself, when was the last time you made her feel wanted? Not needed, but wanted. When was the last time her eyes lit up because of you, not because of her phone? These aren't small details. They're early warnings. If that question stings a little, subscribe and hit like. You're exactly where you need to be. Tell me in the comments. What do you think kills passion first? Routine or indifference? Because what you're about to hear next isn't about her at all. It's about what happens to a woman's loyalty when a man stops making her feel alive. Number 1. She cheats when she feels unseen. A woman doesn't drift away because she's bored. She drifts away because somewhere along the way she stopped feeling visible. When a woman feels invisible in her own relationship, her loyalty starts to fracture quietly. Not in an explosion, but in slow erosion. At first, she'll keep doing what she always does, taking care of the house, supporting your goals, showing up in the same ways. But the light in her eyes changes. You stop noticing. She begins to withdraw piece by piece, almost politely. You mistake it for calm. It's not calm. It's emotional disappearance. This is what I call the underappreciation trap. It's the stage when she no longer feels acknowledged for the emotional labor she invests every single day. The small gestures, the listening, the invisible things she thought you noticed. When those go unseen, a woman doesn't explode. She fades. And when she fades, someone else's attention suddenly feels like oxygen. Men often think love alone sustains loyalty. It doesn't. Recognition does. When a woman feels valued, she invests double. When she feels unseen, she starts saving her energy for someone who will see her again. That's how it begins. Not with betrayal, but with the slow starvation of significance. The mistake most men make is assuming silence means stability. They think if she's not complaining, everything's fine. But when a woman stops asking, stops arguing, stops reacting, that's not peace. That's resignation. She's no longer fighting for the relationship. She's emotionally rehearsing her exit from it. You don't need to be perfect to keep her loyalty. You need to stay present. A simple look that says, I still see you. A word that says, I still appreciate you, can do more than grand gestures months later. Women don't need a superhero. They need acknowledgement, a mirror that reflects back their effort, their worth, their existence. So here's a hard truth. She didn't cheat because someone else was better. She cheated because someone else noticed. And when a woman starts being noticed again, when her laughter is heard, her mind is valued, her soul feels seen, the emotional bond she once had with you becomes a ghost of what it was. If you ever find yourself in that quiet stage where she's distant but polite, affectionate but detached, you're not in safety. You're standing at the edge of the emotional cliff. Don't mistake her calm for comfort. In most cases, that's not peace at all. It's the silence before goodbye. Number 2. Emotional starvation, the silent killer. A woman rarely leaves when she's lonely. She leaves when she feels emotionally disconnected, when the man beside her becomes a stranger she can't reach anymore. That disconnection doesn't happen overnight. It happens in the pauses, the unanswered questions, the moments when her words hit a wall instead of a heart. Here's the core misunderstanding. Men and women connect through opposite doors. Men often use physical intimacy as the gateway to emotional closeness. Women, on the other hand, need emotional closeness before they can open the door to intimacy. When a man skips that step, she doesn't just feel unwanted. She feels unseen on a level deeper than the body. She'll try to talk at first. She'll reach out with small emotional tests. Do you still think about me? Do you notice I've been off lately? When those attempts are brushed aside with logic or silence, something inside her shuts down. That's the beginning of emotional starvation, when her heart keeps showing up, but nothing is feeding it back. Eventually, she'll find someone who listens. It may start innocently. A coworker, an old friend, someone who simply asks how she's really doing. And in that moment, she feels something she hasn't felt in a long time. Resonance, emotional understanding. That connection doesn't feel like cheating at first, but make no mistake. That's where every affair begins. Not in the bedroom, but in the emotional vacuum left unacknowledged. When a woman feels emotionally nourished, she thrives. When she feels starved, she searches, not for passion, but for validation that she's still worth understanding. The tragic part? Most men don't even notice it's happening. They think everything's fine because she's still there physically. But inside, she's already miles away. You don't fix emotional starvation with gifts or apologies. You fix it by rebuilding the bridge, asking her about her world, not just her day, listening to understand, not to defend, saying, I hear you, instead of, you're overreacting. Small adjustments, big returns. The moment you start treating her emotions like data instead of noise, the entire tone of your relationship changes. So the next time she says, we don't talk like we used to, don't roll your eyes. That's not a complaint. That's an emergency broadcast. Because when a woman stops feeling emotionally safe, she doesn't always leave the relationship. Sometimes she just leaves emotionally. And once she's gone in that way, it's nearly impossible to bring her back. She won't tell you she's starving. She'll just start eating somewhere else. Not food, not affection, but emotional attention. And by the time you notice, she'll already be full from someone else's understanding. Number 3, intimacy mismatch. When desire dies quietly. Desire doesn't disappear. It just changes direction. The silence in your bedroom isn't a sign that she no longer wants intimacy. It's a symptom that emotional connection has stopped fueling it. What most men miss is that for a woman, desire isn't mechanical. It's emotional electricity. And when the current stops flowing, so does her willingness to connect. Time changes everything. The rhythm you once shared fades under the weight of daily life. Routines, exhaustion, unspoken frustration. You still reach for her, thinking touch alone will bridge the gap. But she hesitates. Not because she's rejecting you, but because her emotions haven't caught up to her body. That's not rejection, it's disconnection. Men often crave variety. Women crave emotional build-up. For a man, intimacy begins the moment he decides he wants it. For a woman, it starts hours, sometimes days, before that. Every word, every gesture, every small moment of respect or affection becomes the spark that fuels her desire. When those sparks vanish, her body may be beside you, but her mind is somewhere else. You can feel the shift. Shorter kisses, distracted eyes, polite affection without warmth. You tell yourself she's stressed, tired, busy. But underneath that, she's unresponsive because she no longer feels desired for who she is, only for what she can give. That's when physical closeness turns into emotional isolation. The truth is simple but uncomfortable. A woman's desire is not sustained by routine. It thrives on emotional attention. She needs to feel emotionally alive to respond physically. When that balance collapses, she doesn't seek pleasure elsewhere out of lust. She seeks it to remind herself that she can still feel something, that she can still be seen as a woman, not just a partner, a mother, or a habit. Rekindling that spark isn't about grand gestures or scripted romance. It's about subtle emotional rhythm. The way you look at her, the way you listen when she speaks, the way you make her feel chosen even after years together. Desire dies quietly because most men forget to nurture the emotional prelude that once made intimacy effortless. A woman doesn't want constant passion. She wants consistent connection. The kind that tells her she's still your choice, not your routine. So if the fire has dimmed, don't start by fixing the physical. Start by reigniting the emotional. Because when a woman feels emotionally activated, desire follows naturally. And if she's no longer reaching for you, if she's indifferent where she once was warm, don't assume she's broken. She's just disconnected. The question isn't whether she still loves you, it's whether she still feels you. When she no longer does, that's when the desire doesn't die. It simply shifts, looking for a place where it can breathe again. Number 4. Neglect and the savior illusion. While you're building your empire, someone else might be building emotional bridges to her. It's not the affair that starts this story. It's the absence. When a woman feels emotionally neglected, she doesn't immediately run into another man's arms. She starts slowly rewriting the story of her relationship, convincing herself she's alone, even while standing next to you. Neglect doesn't always look like cruelty. It often looks like silence. You're busy, you're working, you're exhausted. You tell yourself you're doing it for her, for both of you. But the reality is, she doesn't feel chosen. She feels like a background character in the life you're trying to secure. And no matter how noble your intentions are, emotional absence feels like rejection to a woman. She tells herself it's temporary, that the long hours, the phone always in your hand, the distracted nods will lead to something better. But every time you miss the small opportunities to connect, to ask how she's really doing, to notice her effort, to touch her without agenda, another thread of the bond snaps. One day, she stops waiting for you to look up. That's when it happens. She meets someone who listens, who looks her in the eye, who doesn't treat her thoughts like background noise. That man doesn't have to be better than you. He just has to be present. And suddenly, he becomes the antidote to everything she's been starving for. The illusion begins. She starts believing he understands her soul, when in truth, he's just filling the space you left empty. This is the savior illusion. The belief that someone new can rescue her from the emotional emptiness of her current relationship. It's seductive, powerful, and almost always false. Because what she's really craving isn't another man. It's the emotional version of you that disappeared somewhere between ambition and exhaustion. When a woman feels neglected, she doesn't want more money or more comfort. She wants more meaning. She needs to feel emotionally included in your world. Otherwise, she starts creating her own, one that doesn't have you in it. Neglect doesn't scream. It whispers. It hides behind your hard work, your good intentions, your belief that providing is enough. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Women rarely fall for someone else because of that person. They fall because of how that person makes them feel in comparison to you. When another man listens without judgment, when he remembers details you've forgotten, when he makes her laugh again, she starts rewriting the emotional map of her loyalty. If she ever says, "You don't understand me anymore," don't argue. Don't defend. Listen. That sentence isn't an accusation. It's a warning. Because the moment she says that, it means someone else probably already does. You can build a kingdom, but if you build it alone, she'll find someone who makes her feel at home. And when that happens, the empire means nothing, because she'll have already found her refuge elsewhere. Number 5. Revenge, the darkest form of validation. Not every woman cheats for affection. Some cheat for power. Revenge is not about passion. It's about reclaiming control in a story where she once felt powerless. This kind of betrayal isn't born from desire. It's born from pain that fermented into ego. Revenge cheating often begins where emotional injury went untreated. Maybe she felt humiliated, dismissed, or betrayed by you first. Not necessarily through infidelity, but through emotional neglect, dishonesty, or disrespect. The wound festers, and instead of healing, she decides to balance the scales. She won't scream. She'll act, and that act will be cold, calculated, almost quiet. That's what makes it so lethal. In her mind, she's not the villain, she's the equalizer. Every text she hides, every secret she keeps becomes a twisted affirmation that she's no longer the one being controlled. It's not about the man she cheats with, it's about the mirror she's holding up to you. She wants to feel that you can finally taste what she's been feeling all along: invisibility, powerlessness, pain. But here's what most men never see coming. A revenge-driven woman doesn't need the satisfaction of being caught. The act itself is enough. The secrecy is her superiority. Her silence becomes her revenge. Her ability to deceive becomes her proof that she's now in control. It's not love. It's ego repair. The dark restoration of her self-worth through destruction. This pattern often shows up in women who are emotionally damaged, but appear magnetic, confident, irresistible. They weaponize their charm as both armor and sword. They've learned how to manipulate empathy, not because they're cruel by nature, but because somewhere along the way, being cruel became their only defense against being weak again. If you notice her testing you, pushing boundaries, provoking jealousy, withdrawing affection to see if you'll chase, that's not playfulness. That's revenge psychology in motion. Every reaction you give her is emotional currency, and the more you spend, the richer she feels. The only way to stop this cycle is not through confrontation, but through detachment. You cannot fight manipulation with reasoning. You end it by removing the audience. When she realizes you're not performing for her guilt trips or her provocations, the power she's feeding on disappears. Silence in this context is not weakness, it's strategy. Because the truth is, a woman who cheats for revenge isn't trying to build something new. She's trying to destroy what she thinks destroyed her. Her heart isn't in love or lust, it's in war. And if you engage, you become her battleground. When you find yourself entangled with this type of woman, draw a line. Not to punish her, but to protect yourself. The moment you stop giving her emotional reaction, you take away the fuel that drives her. Remember this. A woman who cheats for validation doesn't want your love. She wants your attention. And when she loses that, the game ends. The crowd disappears, and all that's left is her, alone with the silence she tried so hard to escape. Number 6, the exit strategy. When cheating becomes escape. Not every betrayal is an act of defiance. Sometimes it's an act of surrender. Some women don't cheat to hurt you. They cheat because they no longer have the strength to leave you directly. When she reaches this stage, the affair isn't about excitement or passion. It's her way of escaping the emotional cage she can't bring herself to unlock. For many women, walking away from a long-term relationship feels like failure. They've invested years, built a home, tied their identity to the us that's now fading. So, instead of ending it cleanly, they unconsciously create chaos, something irreversible, something that makes leaving inevitable. Cheating becomes the detonator that forces an ending she didn't have the courage to ask for. She tells herself it just happened. But the truth is, it didn't. It was building long before that moment, through the silence, the loneliness, the nights where she felt more like a roommate than a lover. She doesn't cheat because she wants someone new. She cheats because she needs a reason to finally stop pretending everything's fine. This kind of infidelity is quiet, conflicted, often full of guilt. But it's also revealing. It shows a woman who's emotionally exhausted, not cruel. She doesn't want to destroy you. She wants to disappear from the version of herself that's been shrinking next to you. And when she finds someone who reflects back the parts she's lost, curiosity, light, desire, she sees a door, not to another man but to freedom. That's why you'll notice the signs long before it happens. She stops sharing her thoughts. She stops asking for your opinion. She stops arguing, not because she agrees, but because she no longer cares to be understood. She starts building a parallel life, new routines, new friends, new silences. By the time she crosses the line, the relationship has already flatlined emotionally. It's tempting to call her a coward. But the truth is, she's human. Leaving cleanly requires confrontation, and confrontation requires strength. Many people, not just women, run instead of facing the truth. And in running, they create even deeper pain for everyone involved. If you see her fading, don't wait for betrayal to wake you up. Talk. Not to win her back, but to understand whether the relationship is already dying. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do isn't to hold on. It's to recognize when holding on is keeping you both trapped. When betrayal becomes her exit, the damage isn't just the act itself. It's the realization that she had to destroy something sacred just to set herself free. That's not victory. It's tragedy. And if you ever find yourself on the other side of that story, remember this. You can't fix a woman who's already halfway out the door. But you can learn from her silence, from the spaces she left behind, from the truth that sometimes love doesn't die in anger. It dies in absence. Because sometimes the smartest way to love is to let go before she forces you to. In the end, every story of infidelity traces back to the same root: disconnection. Whether it begins with feeling unseen, emotionally starved, mismatched in intimacy, neglected, vindictive, or trapped in an exit strategy, the pattern remains the same. A woman stops cheating the moment she feels understood. Women rarely cheat for excitement. They cheat for escape. From emptiness, from neglect, from silence. What looks like betrayal on the surface is often an unspoken cry for recognition, the last attempt to feel alive when the relationship has turned numb. But here's what most men never realize. You can't control loyalty by control itself. You sustain it by connection. When she feels seen, heard, and emotionally safe, her loyalty isn't effort, it's instinct. And when she doesn't, no amount of logic, money, or promises can keep her there. If you want to build a relationship that lasts, stop asking how to keep her. Start asking what she needs to feel present with you. When was the last time you really looked at her? When was the last time you made her feel chosen, not obligated? The answers to those questions determine more than any ring, vow, or rule ever could. Women don't leave because they find someone better. They leave because they stop recognizing themselves next to you. If you want her respect, become the man who makes her proud to reflect herself in your eyes. Not because you're perfect, but because you're aware. And if you've been on the receiving end of betrayal, don't drown in bitterness. Use it as a mirror. Pain is information. It tells you where you stopped paying attention, where the connection died. Learn from it. Don't repeat it. If this message resonates with you, if you're ready to understand women not through judgment but through awareness, subscribe. Because here, I don't teach you how to win women. I teach you how not to be controlled by them. The moment you stop chasing her validation is the moment she starts respecting your silence.